Welcome to Rugby Met, the science of the game. I'm Carlos Braga, joining today with António Cruz Ferreira. Today we're exploring two insightful studies. The first one is titled Self-Confidence, Mental Toughness and Psychobiosocial Experience in Elite Rugby Players by Claudio Robaza and colleagues. The study focused on the Italian national rugby team during the 2024 Six Nations Championship and shed light on mental factors like self-confidence and mental toughness influence performance. Antonio, it's great to have you here to unpack this research. What stood out to you when you first read this article?
Thanks, Carlos. First of all, it's a huge pleasure to be launching this project with you, and I'm really happy that we were able to just start with this interesting study. So, what struck me, basically, what struck me was how the study connects mental toughness and self-confidence to coping strategies and performance outcomes. It's a comprehensive look at the mental side of rugby, which we often don't give enough attention to, and we should give more.
Okay. Let's start to divide the parts of this study, starting with the basics. This study is rooted with the multi-states theory, which explains how performance arises from the interaction of traits, tasks, and environments. The authors studied self-confidence, mental toughness, and three types of coping strategies. The first one, problem-focused, actively addressing challenge. Emotion focused, and the last one, avoidance. Emotion focused is based on managing emotional responses, and in the other hand, avoidance is a mechanism of coping about escaping stressful situations. Um, Antonio, why do you think these factors are so critical when in high pressure setting like the Six Nations?
Well, the Six Nations and many other competitions, I would think that even at our level, at the Rugby Championship, shouldn't be much different. Because at this level, the mental game can be the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah.
Players do need confidence. They need confidence. They need to believe that they can succeed and the toughness to handle setbacks. But what's fascinating here is how the study highlights problem focused coping, actively dealing with the challenges as the most effective strategy in this setting. That's the what struck me the most.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The study showed that players with higher self-confidence and mental toughness viewed competitions and as challenge, but not threats. Use the problem-focused coping effectively, and experience more positive psychological, biological states. The thing that surprised me is it may be the avoidance coping had no significant impact, and an emotion focused coping wasn't that effective in influencing performance. What do you think?
Well, to be honest, that basically aligns with what we see in practice. Avoidance doesn't work at the elite level because the challenge just don't go away. And while managing emotions is helpful, no, we cannot deny it. It's not enough if you're not addressing the root of the stress. So whenever we have a problem, we have to really focus on solving the problem more than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, um, Moving this to the field, with your experience in field, um, Antonio, how can coaches and sport psychologists that nowadays is almost mandatory at a international level, at a elite level, how these coaches and sports psychologists can use these findings to help the players?
Well, I think that support the players in terms of mental health and coaching is crucial at that moment. But I think at first we need to train self-confidence and mental toughness. That could mean creating scenarios in training that mimic high pressure situations so that players could build resilience. Secondly, I think that we need to emphasize problem-focused coping. Okay, for example, teaching the players how to break down from challenges into manageable steps, or encouraging them to open communication about stressors, um, could potentially make a big difference, cause a big impact in how players could manage those stressful events.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Um, I think the key is maybe reframe or remodel the high pressure moments from the players to opportunities, to moments that they can grow and they can take this to another level. Maybe a change in the mindset could influence their performance for but sometimes I'm in doubt if it's only available this kind of mindset changes to the elite players, or do you think, in your opinion, it's across all the levels of rugby that we can use it?
Well, for sure, I think that these kind of skills are usable everywhere, but it's certainly more relevant at the elite level because the stakes are higher. Basically, that's the reason for it. But the principles can be applied everywhere, even in young players. They can benefit from learning to address challenges head on rather than avoiding them. So I would say that yeah, for sure at the elite level, it could be very interesting. It's crucial. It's very important to train our players on these skills, but they can be used everywhere, honestly, and outside rugby even.
Okay. This study also provides empirical support for the must theory, showing how traits and self-confidence interact with the coping strategies that I'm talking about before. Um, in your opinion, as someone deeply involved in rugby, what's your biggest takeaway from this research?
Well, I think that first of all, this is actually a really interesting article, a really interesting paper. For me, it's the importance of integrating mental training into the overall development of players. So we cannot think of preparing a player and not focusing also in the mental training of this individual. Physical preparation is of course essential. That there are no questions there. There is no worry there. But without the mental resilience and effective coping strategies, these players won't be able to reach their full potential. So, in fact, what I think that this paper brings to us is that we can have the best physically prepared athlete. If he's not mentally prepared, he will not be able to be proficient in delivering what he has been trained for.
Yeah, 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 I totally agree with you. And uh, the thing of this article that surprised me in a positive way too is the thing that is a little bit more the researchers are a little bit more concerned about the mental part, the mental health, instead of the physical and the tactical training. We know a little bit more of the impact that mental health has in not just in performance, but maybe and also too in the injuries, in the well-being, in welfare of the player. So it's very very interesting that a recent article like this one bring us so many informations about the mental health and in its importance. And we need to, in this year, to start with this in mind to our players, to our staff teams, and to improve, to continue to improve rugby. So thank you, Antonio, for these comments to this article. I think you have another one to
Yeah,
discuss with
yeah, I
me.
do. Yeah, as he chose to bring something on the mental health, I thought that we could stay on the brain, and I
Yeah,
could bring you something about concussion assessment in sport, and especially concussion assessment in rugby. So I'll
yeah.
bring you a paper that has been released recently. It's called assessment. The title is Assessment of Eye and Eye Tracking tool to discriminate between concussed and not concussed professional male rugby players, a cohort study.
Mhm.
The author, the main author, was James Brown from the Beckett University from in Leeds. There are several colleagues from us that sit on the concussion working group at World Rugby. This is a very interesting paper. Have you already read it?
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. As you know, it's concussion is a high topic and it's a very special topic for me. I started my PhD last year with a concussion in mind to be the subject of maybe the thesis, and it's I think it's for 2024 it's the most important. Uh, Injury and the most important topic for rugby. Not even not only for rugby, but for rugby is very very important.
I think
And
that for football,
yeah, yeah,
the change
totally,
in the substitutions in
yeah.
football that was just introduced this year, I think that created a setting where concussion is now a real issue, not only in rugby but in football also, and everyone is talking about it. So yeah, I think that's quite important. Yeah.
It's very present, and we are in the in a part of the history that we are making some new discoveries to concussion that could be very very important to not only for the diagnosis but for the management of this entity. And of course, rugby is a collision sport, so we have to be able to manage this kind of pathology. And I'm really excited to explore the findings of this article that you
Yeah.
bring.
So let's set the stage. So we do know how we manage concussion in World Rugby setting. So in rugby, in international rugby, you have been monthly doctor for several matches. So what this study attempted is to focus on one device, Neuroflex. This is a trademark, which is an eye tracking tool that helps assessing concussions in professional male rugby players. So the tool measures basically oculomotor functions like smooth pursuit, saccades, and vestibulo-ocular reflexes. These are thought to be affected by concussions, and so potentially, if we can have a device that can track these changes, there are these small subtle changes that might be present in the concussed player. This could be helpful for diagnosis. So the study followed players through head injury assessment protocol. Just to recap, Carlos, because some of the listeners might not be familiar,
Yeah, of course.
the HIA protocol includes three stages. The head injury assessment one, which happens during the game whenever there is a situation of a possible concussion. It is conducted immediately after the head impact. Then the HIA2, every time we have a player that enters the HIA protocol, it will have another assessment at the end of the game. And then an HIA3 after 2 nights of sleep, so usually between 36 to 48 hours of time passed from the game. So yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And the thing to assess the concussion today that we have basically two criteria, criteria one and criteria two. And the thing it's criteria one, it's a list of obvious signs and symptoms of concussion. So you know that when a player lost the consciousness, you'll know that is a concussion or maybe is a probable concussion, suspected concussion. So you will remove that player and you'll start the protocol. But criteria two could be a little bit less clear, and at this part enter the clinical judgment, and which can be obviously subjective. There are some things that are being done by World Rugby, or in our case by Rugby Europe, to minimize these subjective, but it could be at the time it could be very, very difficult to decide.
Yeah. Well, first of all, when people tell me that being clinical or having clinical judgment is subjective, well, it is. But if it was not subjective, then probably we could replace doctors by machines, and that's not for sure what we hope as doctors, that objectivity takes over our role. So on the other hand, it would be very interesting if we had tools that could help us make more reasonable and more sensible decisions. So in this case, Neuroflex, this tool, the hope was that they could provide some objective data that would support the clinical decision of doctors that are performing HIA. But as we will discuss later, probably the results of this study were quite surprising in terms of the use of these kind of tools to support the clinical decision of our fellow doctors on the field.
Yeah, yeah. And bringing that to the field, what did the study find the most important things? Did Neuroflex live up to the expectation? Because sometimes you develop something that you bring a lot of expectations to concussion field. We
Yeah,
have a lot of projects, a lot of studies being done in this topic,
yeah.
but sometimes it leaves us with less things that we want to.
Well, you know that on this field, on the neuroscience and then concussion, there's a lot of interest, and there are a lot of tools that attempt to be developed and used to help clinicians to make better judgments. So in this specific case, the study analyzed 8 metrics from Neuroflex during HR1. So um, sadly, they found that only one of the metrics, which was the number of saccades in the smooth pursuit test, differentiated between concussed and non-concussed players. Um, the tricky part here is that concussed players actually perform better on this metric, which was clearly the opposite of what would be expected.
Yeah, that's very surprising. No, yeah. Oh, and did the authors explain why this might be the case?
Well, yeah, well, they propose a few possibilities. One is that construct validity of these metrics might not be as strong as previously assumed. In other
Mhm.
words, the test may not measure what they thought it was supposed to measure. Another possibility is just that the tool might not be sensitive enough to detect the subtle differences in elite athletes under real world conditions. It is very important for everyone to understand that sometimes we do develop tools in a bubble environment, in a lab environment, that when they are translated into the field, when we bring those into the field, sometimes they do not work exactly as we thought they might have worked. Might be that case today. We don't know.
Yeah, they work in a lab scenario, but they didn't work in the field scenario probably.
Yeah,
And this wasn't the first time an eye tracking
yeah,
fell
yeah,
short, right?
yeah,
We can think about the King Davick test, another well-known tool for concussion,
yeah.
but also showed poor sensitivity and specificity in similar studies.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this raises broader concerns about the utility of these tools for acute concussion assessment, especially in high-performance settings like professional rugby. Now, we can think about a number of attempts to make things more objective, but clinical judgment still is a crucial part of this process for sure.
Yeah, and probably could not be used for acute concussions assessment, but they could be used for the return to play or to follow up, not to decide, of course, but to have an idea of the evolution during the protocol.
Yeah, maybe, probably, yeah.
So where does this leave us? Should we abandon these high tracking tools altogether, or there is still hope for this kind of tools of concussion for their development, and
Well,
we should invest in
yeah.
more
Yeah,
research.
yeah. I think Carlos, to be fairly honest and to be very practical about it, I wouldn't say abandon, but we clearly need to proceed with caution. The author suggests exploring additional metrics. Of course, there are 18 in total for HIA-1, and there are even more for HIA-2 and 3. So there's a world of things that can be explored. However, this would require balancing the practicality of using these tools during high pressure matches. Imagine we have conducted HIA tests on the field in multiple settings, sometimes not even in the ideal settings. Performing an HIA-1 with the time frame that we have, with the protocol that we have to implement, having onto this and other tools might be not as practical as we can think initially. And so I'll think that we need to look into alternatives for sure. But so far, things are not working bad. So let's try to be cautious about the next moves that we have.
Sometimes it's good for the matrix, you know, from the matrix of the concussion subjects you have. You had a point to the all the figure is good to make the all the painting.
Yeah, for
And
sure, for sure.
and what about the role of the clinical judgment? As you know, as you said before, you and I totally agree with you. I don't want to be replaced by machines too. But despite its subjectivity from the clinical judgment, I think it is the gold standard for concussion diagnosis at this moment we are recording, of course. What do you think, in your opinion, when you are a little bit more inside of the fields?
Yeah, well, as I said before, clinical judgment remains and will remain for a long time, for sure, crucial. I'm not saying that we cannot look into something to aid the doctors on the field. And I believe that something like the Neuroflex could eventually complement if we are able to refine it and improve their sensitivity. But for now, what this study again shows and reminds us is that no single tool can replace the expertise of the experienced clinicians, and we should continuously focus on training, on preparing our doctors, on preparing the HIA protocol properly, and making sure that we are exposed to more and more training and get better in finding and in identifying concussion and suspected concussion situations, so that create a safer environment for everyone. So I think that they could be useful, yes, but still there is a way, a path to be followed until we have those
Yeah,
on board.
yeah. It's amazing article. Thank you, Antonio, for bringing us this article. It's important nowadays to combine technology with clinical judgment. So I think that is the way for the future of sports medicine, and even more for rugby medicine. Um,
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree with that. So
and
I think we have reached the end of
yeah,
our today episode.
yeah,
Would like to thank you, Carlos, for joining me. Would like to thank all the listeners for joining us on this small chat. If you're interested in this topic, we are going to leave both the papers links on the bios on the bios, so you can just follow that. And until next time, please stay curious and stay informed, and make sure you follow us, and make sure we meet again soon, Carlos.
yeah. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you for your share. If you like to hear more about this, please share in the comments. Subscribe our networks and stay connected with us.
Thank you, Carlos. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.